Okay, returned again. Thank you for being here. JD Vance, this writer turned madman who is now senator, thanks to Donald Trump from Ohio. Yesterday, he just, in a very stupid, ignorant way, he shows his ignorance every time this fucker opens his mouth. But he dismisses fears of Russia's military capabilities under Vladimir Putin. And he suggested that Ukraine should give up some of its land in order to end the war. Now, I say that JD Vance is the dumbest son of a bitch ever to have that's ridiculous. He's one of the dumbest son of a bitches in the U.S. Senate right now. Does he not understand what happened before the onset of World War II when Neville Chamberlain cut a deal with Adolf Hitler that, okay, you can have Czechoslovakia, but, that's it, right? And then Chamberlain comes back to the UK and he said, I have made sure that we will have peace in our time. And Hitler, from the moment that deal was agreed to, Hitler was just choking on his own bile, laughing his ass off. What are these dumb fuckers talking about? I'm going to take all of Europe, I'm going to take the UK, and I'm going to take America. Well, JD Vance is an ignorant son of a bitch. This is what he said, quote, if you look at the size of the Russian armed forces, if you look at what would be necessary to conquer all of Ukraine, much less to go further and further west into Europe, I don't think the guy's shown any capacity to be able to accomplish these imperialistic goals, assuming that he has them. The guy he's referring to, of course, is the Christian bastard, just like JD Vance, Vladimir Putin. And JD Vance also reiterated what he believes, that he believes, quote, there will be negotiations, end quote. He's pushing the idea that Ukraine should be willing to give up at least some of its territory to end the war. Vance also said this, quote, it ends the way nearly every single war has ever ended, when people negotiate and each side gives up something that it doesn't want to give up. No one can explain to me how this ends without some territorial concessions relative to the 1991 boundaries. You ignorant asshole. What did the United States give up to Japan? What did the United States, or Western Europe, for that matter, give up to the Nazis? You ignorant asshole. And yet you have hundreds of thousands of followers, right? And Donald Trump loves your ass, JD, because you're a fucking Nazi just like he is. Give up. Go ahead. Cut a deal, Zelensky. Just, you're just a Jew. And Vladimir Putin is a Christian. So you don't count, Zelensky. Isn't that what JD Vance is saying? Of course it is. And a day earlier, Vance was on CNN's State of the Union. That was on Sunday. And he said, quote, it's in America's best interest to accept Ukraine is going to have to cede some territory to the Russians. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? Well, this is the Fortress America crowd. This is build a wall around everything. And the 340 million of us who are unfortunate enough to live in this country under a orange bastard dictatorship, we will become much like the people of what was the country in 1984. Come on, Mike. East Asia, the one that constituted England, actually, and Western Europe. Damn, another brain fart. Anyway, that's what is in store for the United States under a Trump dictatorship. And we're so goddamn close to it. Now, even while that's going on, Zelensky was meeting today with members of Congress where he is begging for more U.S. aid. And JD Vance and these other Christian devils in the Congress have opposed the aid package that was proposed by President Biden, which includes aid for Ukraine and Israel. Israel. Isn't that where all the Jews live? That's right. Huh? Right? JD? So like Zelensky, Netanyahu is a Jew. They're both Jews, right, JD? But you see, Zelensky is a Democrat, small d. Netanyahu is a Nazi, capital N. But in the long view, JD Vance knows that eventually someone like Netanyahu and the Jews that run Israel will have to be, following Fuentes' dictum, they'll have to be put to death too, in order to clear perfidious Jews off the planet. Right, JD? Jesus Christ, this is sick stuff. And it's happening right now. This is not a report on how the Shoah began. This is happening now by the leaders of this country. And there are other Christian fascists like Ron DeSantis, that Nazi from Florida, who have argued that aiding Ukraine is not in the U.S. national interest. DeSantis said this, quote, "While the U.S. has many vital national interests, securing our borders, addressing the crisis of readiness within our military, achieving energy security and independence, and checking the economic, cultural, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them." And he said that earlier this year, and then he had to walk it back, especially the comments, and he changed his mind and called Putin a war criminal. But you see, this is the kind of so-called leadership that the Christian bastards are throwing up there. Ron DeSantis? JD Vance? Nick Fuentes? Donald Trump? Steve Bannon? And back in September, this child molesting bastard Matt Gaetz, representative from Florida, wrote an amendment to a defense funding bill that would have prohibited military assistance to Ukraine. Now that amendment failed, but it got 93 Republican votes. And Zelensky is in D.C. today, or he was today, begging, pleading with these Christian devils to help him fight the Christian devil that has invaded his country. But Zelensky is a Jew. So what do you suppose the Christian devils are going to say? Now, the excuse they're going to use is, well, it's time for us to go home and celebrate Christmas, so we don't have time to even debate this issue. Go home and celebrate the greediest, most sickening capitalist holiday ever stolen from Celtic and pagan people who were trying to celebrate, in their way, the solstice. I'm not even going to talk about that. Now, JD was asked yesterday, whether he believes that the United States should uphold what is called Article 5 in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization Charter if a NATO ally were attacked. And that Article 5 says, well, attack on one country in NATO is attack on all of us, and we will all respond. Vance said, quote, "I think that if a NATO ally is attacked, we have to honor that commitment. But I don't see any plausible argument that Vladimir Putin is going to attack a NATO ally," end quote. Once again, the Putin apologists, the former president of the United States, well, when he was president, he kicked the U.S. intelligence agencies to the curb and swore allegiance to Vladimir Putin. Trump did. JD Vance, Gates, the rest of these slime. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.